The next Nobel Prize in Medicine will undoubtedly go to the European Court of Human Rights for successfully performing the most expensive and most dangerous surgical procedure ever, removing the collective spine of 47 nations. A few months ago, I posted a video titled, "Germany Enforces Sharia Blasphemy Laws." It was about lawyers for the modern, freedom-loving nation of Germany filing a legal complaint demanding that YouTube block a video wherein I referred to Muhammad as a sex addict. Why did I call Muhammad a sex addict? Because, according to Muslim sources, Muhammad would have sex with 9 to 11 women and girls in a single night. And that's just not normal. Today, if we heard about a political leader having sex with 9 or 10 or 11 women and girls in a single night, we would call him a sex addict. The government of Germany, however, is more concerned about the religious feelings of Muslims than with freedom of speech or open, honest criticism. So they had my video blocked in Germany. Not to be outdone in demolishing the foundations of Western civilization and selling its citizens into mental slavery, the European Court of Human Rights turned to Pakistan as the gold standard of 21st century legal enlightenment and said, "Sharia blasphemy laws, how can we make those work for us?" The Associated Press reports, the European Court of Human Rights says an Austrian woman's conviction for calling the Prophet of Islam a pedophile didn't breach her freedom of speech. The Strasbourg-based ECHR ruled Thursday that Austrian courts had carefully balanced her right to freedom of expression with the right of others to have their religious feelings protected. There have always been limits to freedom of speech in Western nations. You can't phone in a bomb threat and say, "Well, it's my freedom of speech." The classic example is shouting fire in a crowded theater. Here, there's no real content to your speech. You're just trying to get people trampled to death. So there are limits to free speech. But the European Court of Human Rights just added another one. Your freedom of speech has to be balanced with the right of others to have their religious feelings protected. Yes, certain people have a legal right not to have their religious feelings hurt by you. Their religious feelings are protected by the government. Pop quiz. The religious feelings the ECHR is concerned about belong to A. Christians, B. Jews, C. Hindus, D. Atheists, E. all Europeans, or F. only Muslims. If you answered F, congratulations, you're not in a coma. The Associated Press continues. The woman in her late 40s, identified only as ES, claimed during 2 public seminars in 2009 that the Prophet Muhammad's marriage to a young girl was akin to pedophilia. A Vienna court convicted her in 2011 of disparaging religious doctrines, ordered her to pay a €480 or $547 fine plus costs. The ruling was later upheld by an Austrian appeals court. The ECHR said, the Austrian court's decision served the legitimate aim of preserving religious peace. Now, in case you're new to all of this, why would someone call Muhammad a pedophile? Well, according to Islam's most trusted sources, Muhammad had sex with a prepubescent 9-year-old girl named Aisha. Sahih al-Bukhari, 5158. Narrated Urwa, the Prophet wrote the marriage contract with Aisha while she was 6 years old and consummated his marriage with her while she was 9 years old, and she remained with him for 9 years, i.e. till his death. Sahih Muslim, 3481. It was narrated from Aisha that the Prophet married her when she was 7 years old, and she was taken to him as a bride when she was 9 years old, and she took her dolls with her. He died when she was 18 years old. Notice that when Aisha was taken to Muhammad as a bride, her dolls were with her. Since Aisha was still playing with dolls, we know that she hadn't yet reached puberty when Muhammad started having sex with her because dolls were forbidden once a girl reached puberty. But don't take my word for it. Sahih al-Bukhari, 6130. Narrated Aisha, I used to play with the dolls in the presence of the Prophet, and my girlfriends also used to play with me. When Allah's messenger used to enter my dwelling place, they used to hide themselves, but the Prophet would call them to join and play with me. The playing with the dolls and similar images is forbidden, but it was allowed for Aisha at that time as she was a little girl not yet reached the age of puberty. For more on Aisha being prepubescent, let's look at how one of these hadiths actually appears in the Muslim sources. Sahih al-Bukhari, 5133. Narrated Aisha that the Prophet wrote the marriage contract with her when she was 6 years old, and he consummated his marriage when she was 9 years old, and then she remained with him for 9 years, i.e. till his death. That's the hadith, but look at the chapter heading. Giving one's young children in marriage is permissible. Why? By virtue of the statement of Allah, and for those who have no monthly courses, i.e. they are still immature, this is from Surah 65, verse 4 of the Quran, which lays down divorce proceedings for prepubescent girls, girls who are too immature to have a monthly period. The iddah for the girl before puberty is 3 months. The iddah was how long a girl had to wait after a divorce before she could get married again. Since the Quran is telling men how to divorce prepubescent girls, Muslim commentators considered it obvious that they could marry prepubescent girls, especially when Muhammad himself married a prepubescent girl. So, the Prophet of Islam not only married and had sex with a prepubescent 9-year-old girl, but also received revelations from Allah, allowing men to marry and divorce prepubescent girls. Should it be legal in 21st century Western society to call a man who had sex with a prepubescent girl and claimed that there's nothing wrong with having sex with prepubescent girls a pedophile? Notice, I'm not saying that you should call Muhammad a pedophile. You could say, hey, I want to get along with my Muslim friends, so I'm not going to call their prophet a pedophile. That would be a perfectly reasonable position. The question is whether it should be legal to call Muhammad a pedophile. The European Court of Human Rights says no, because saying what you believe about Muhammad might hurt people's religious feelings, and hurting people's religious feelings might jeopardize the religious peace. 3 takeaways. First, if the ECHR's goal was to preserve religious peace, the judges did the exact opposite. They encouraged religious violence. How so? Well, since the court has officially declared that your rights end when expressing your rights might lead to religious violence, the way for other people to control your behavior is through religious violence. In other words, if someone doesn't like the way you dress, or what you eat, or the things that you say, all he has to do is throw a violent tantrum, and European nations will make your behavior illegal in order to preserve the religious peace. Here you might say, no, our politicians and judges would never do that, but they've already started. And each new batch of politicians and judges wants to outdo the previous batch in showing how tolerant they are by slobbering on the feet of Muslim sheikhs. So it doesn't take a wild imagination to see where Europe is headed. Second, Sharia always finds a way. What do you have in Saudi Arabia? Sharia blasphemy laws, because Allah demands them. What do you have in Pakistan? Sharia blasphemy laws, because Allah demands them. What do you have in Europe? Sharia blasphemy laws, because we need to preserve the religious peace. Different reasons, but same results. You're not free to call Muhammad names. That's Sharia. One religious group gets a privileged status over other religious groups. That's Sharia. What's amazing here is that if you say, I'm worried about the spread of Islam because of how it affects my rights, politicians and the media will call you delusional. But it's absolutely indisputable that the spread of Islam affects your rights. So what's delusional is denying that the spread of Islam affects your rights. Sharia always finds a way to enforce compliance. Third, your governments, citizens of Europe, are no longer protecting your rights. But the primary purpose of your governments is to protect your rights. So what do you do when your leaders aren't doing the main thing they're supposed to do? Let's ask the founding fathers of the most powerful and prosperous nation that's ever existed. Founding fathers, what do we do when our governments are no longer preserving and protecting our rights? The answer? We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Fortunately, since you Europeans live in various forms of democracies, you don't need a violent revolution. You just need an informed population of free people, and you can get a government that cares about your safety and protects your rights just by exercising the rights that you still have while you still have them. So I'd like to know what you all think about the ECHR's ruling that freedom of speech is limited by the religious feelings of Muslims, and that this is necessary to preserve religious peace. Please share your thoughts in the comments section.